So I was gonna buy one of those aftermarket kick down cables from Lokar or wherever for my 727 automatic transmission in my Dodge truck. But it was going to take a long time to get, and it was ridiculously expensive, even compared to the last one that I bought. So I decided I'm going to go pick up 30 bucks worth of bicycle parts, and I'm going to make the same thing. If that sounds like something that's interesting to you, stick around. Now I know this video got a little long, but stick with me, hang around till the end, and it turned out really well. And I'll share with you a little bit of the things that I might change if I had to do it again. So here's a factory kickdown linkage arm from the 727. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock that little pin that the linkage used to connect to there. I'm going to knock that off and I'm going to straighten it out. That's going to allow me to just run it straight out and connect to it with my cable. Now something else I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bunch of different holes evenly spaced down the shaft of the lever, just so that I can get my ratio right. Now basically what has to happen is when the carburetor is at wide open throttle, this thing needs to be pulled to max open or max tight or whatever it is on the pressure valve. So those different holes will give me the availability to get my ratio just the way I need it. So here is what's going to hold my cable at the carburetor. Now this is just a flat piece of aluminum I had, drilled 2 holes in it. I snapped a 1/4 inch nutsert, one of those rivet style nutserts in there, and I ended up, what I had to do is I had to tap it out to 7mm metric, which worked out just about perfect in there. With this piece here off the bicycle, that's where the cable would have attached to the bicycle brake lever. So the rest of the brake lever I don't think I'm going to be using for anything. I just bought that whatever $17 pair of them for these 2 things here, but you know what? It's still going to be a way bunch cheaper than buying the pre-made kit. So there that piece is installed on the little bracket that I bought from the speed shop just to hold my throttle cable. This is just all an add-on to that. Now this is the bracket that's going to hold the back of the cable on down at the transmission. It's just about exactly like the one that I built for the carb bracket, but shorter. Now it bolts on to one of the bolts for the tail housing. And again, it uses one of those pieces from the brake handle just to hold the cable in there. So I had to shorten the cable sleeve, and I decided I better put the little furl off the end of it back on. So I just skinned it off the end of the cutoff and held it back on here with a piece of heat shrink. Worked out pretty good. Now here's the bottom piece installed. That's the rear transmission cooler line that you see there, just for reference as to where exactly this is in the system. But that's going to hold the back of my cable sheathing. And anybody that's familiar with these transmissions knows the kickdown linkage pulls backwards towards the back of the transmission as the throttle is squeezed. So I kept this one end on the cable. This is just for connecting to the bicycle end there, and I was hoping I was going to be able to make use of it. These are pretty darn strong, and there's really not a whole lot of pull on this cable, so I think it's going to work out. The big thing is I gotta find a way to hook this onto the arm off the transmission. So this is what I've got in mind. I took this and I put just a coupling nut on here with a real short 1/4 inch bolt, and I'm going to shorten this down. I'm going to drill it out so that little piece of that little round piece on the end of the cable will slide in there, and I'm going to find a way to cut a slot to make this work out. It's basically just going to be a metal example of the same kind of thing that holds it onto the bicycle lever. I actually tried initially to use part of the bicycle lever and cut it off, but it was all just plastic, and I really didn't want to risk it and have it break on me. So I measured, and this fits just nice at 9/30 seconds. So I'm going to drill that out to 9/30 seconds. Hopefully there's enough meat left in that little coupling nut. Now what I'm trying to do is just figure out where my slot's got to be so that this thing's going to set in there low enough that I can just basically slide it in and turn it over just the way anybody that's ever changed a cable on a bicycle would do it. So here we go. This is what I've made. This just slides in and comes around, and it's going to pull towards the back of the transmission. Now this is all nice and loose, but what I am going to do is I'm going to ensure as best I can there's no burrs or anything in there, because you know what it's like if that were to break, which during normal use it never will, because there's really not that much pull to pull that lever. But if you were to ever get a burr, start chafing that's the only time that this may ever break. And you know what, that's one thing a guy really wants to be sure. Yeah, it's a great idea to save money on this cable, but if it costs you a transmission, that's no good. So there it is, all in place. I got a real nice straight shot on the cable, and I think it's going to work out real well. Like I mentioned before, the only thing that I may have to adjust is just the distance between the pivot on the transmission and the piece that's holding my cable, just to make sure that I get wide open throttle and full pull on this valve for line pressure. Now here we go up here. I just got to figure out something to connect this cable to right about there, and but I'm still going to need some amount of adjustment. I've got a little bit of adjustment on this, but I don't want to use it unless I have to, because those fittings aren't the most robust things in the world. So I'll figure something out here. So since I've got another one of these little 1/4-inch coupling nuts, might as well see if I can't make that into something that's going to attach to that carburetor. So here's what I did. I drilled and tapped the side of this 1/4-inch rod coupler, and I actually just put a bolt and I just tapped it into there, and I cut the head off, put a nut on there as a jam nut, and just something to sturdy it up a little bit. Then what I did is I took another 1/4-inch bolt, and I drilled it from the end, which was kind of a pain in the butt, and it's really tough to get it, try and get that in focus. It's really tough to get it straight and to stay straight. I got this close to a 1/2 inch deep before it really started to wander on me, but when you're drilling with such a small tiny bit, it's just barely big enough for that cable to go in. It's tough to keep them straight, but I was able to get it deep enough that I can definitely hang on real good. Now what goes on here is this threads into here, and this is going to bolt onto the carburetor, and this is obviously going to hold the cable. And it's going to give me a little bit of adjustment. It's going to give me close to 1 inch of adjustment back and forth this way on the threads. And this cable will come in right to about here. So I'll have that little bit of extra cable if need be. It should be no problem getting this thing dialed right in. Let's throw it on the motor, or throw it on the carburetor, pardon me, and we'll see how it looks. Well, there it is, all attached down at the bottom there. And if you see, you open the carb right wide. That bottom cable is nice and snug, and it's pretty much maxed out on the cable going down to the transmission. So that lever arm on the cable is pulled basically all the way back, which is exactly what we're looking for in this instance. Just because I decided to weld this a little bit, and then I got a little bit ugly with my grinding, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's stronger, and it's Just one less thing I got to worry about. I'm kind of glad I did it. And one more thing that I decided to do is I just put that little jam nut on there just to keep everything from flopping around and make sure that that adjustable piece stays where it's supposed to be. So one of the things that I maybe should have done and I maybe still will do is just put some kind of heat shield protection around that cable. It's I don't think I really need to worry about it. It comes right off the back of the carb. It basically runs down the back of the transmission and around and loops to where you can see where it bolted on. I don't think it's a problem. I may revisit it. If it does become a problem, I'll amend this video and let everybody know, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay the way it is. Another thing is the most expensive part of the stuff that I bought, I probably wouldn't spend my money on again. Now I bought those two little bicycle brake handles, and I only ended up using those two little pieces, that basically like the little receptacles for the ends of the cable. If I had it to do over again, I wouldn't waste the money on that, and I would just build something which can't be that difficult to do. I'd build something to take the place of those because they're kind of cheesy and they're not really gonna work out for any kind of adjustment like I hope they would. Now, one thing a person might want to consider, they would probably be pretty cheap if you were to buy something like that, maybe if you've got an actual bicycle shop near you. If you could get some that were actual steel or stainless or something like that, rather than these cheesy aluminum things that I used, you'd probably be better off, and it would probably be something that you could count on for some adjustment. But that's just one failure. The ones that I got, they're just probably not worth it. And one last thing, the cable that I bought was about 60 inches long. Now, if you could, probably like about, 48 inches would be better. Even 44 inches would be, yeah, about 48 inches would probably be about ideal. I ended up having to cut a little bit off of this one, and it worked out okay because then the inner cable is a little bit longer and gives you a little more room to play with that. But just, I guess, is kind of buy what you can. But anywhere between 48 and 60 inches, and you'll be happy with what you've got, and you should be able to make that work. Anyways, this turned out really well. I'm really happy with how it all worked out. And realistically, when you consider if I was to not buy those bicycle brake handles, it's about $10 is all that's really into this, and the rest of it's just stuff that I had around the shop. I mean, I don't know if you would want to throw another $10 or $15 in just shop supplies that I put into this job, but it worked out really well, and I will report back and let everybody know how it panned out long term. Anyways, thanks for watching.